The most important statistic that he didn't tell you was that of those over 5,000 patients that we've treated, 2 deaths, only 2. If we can keep them out of the hospital, they won't die. And that's what we're doing. Now, they've asked me to talk about medical freedom from the aspect of the vaccine. And I echo what Dr. Brown said. We are not anti-vaccine. We are anti-vaccine mandate. We are pro-vaccine transparency, pro-vaccine safety. We are anti-mandate, and we are pro-vaccine informed consent. So why is informed consent so important? It's the backbone of good, ethical medical practice, is informed consent. As a doctor, I need to tell patients what the efficacy of the treatment is, what the possible good effects, the benefits, and the risks, in order that they can make a decision. Not their family necessarily, although they can help, but certainly not their school, certainly not their employer or the government. They need to make that decision. So let's talk about the effectiveness of these vaccines, their benefits and risks. First of all, most of you know that Israel is one of the most highly vaccinated countries in the world, with over 80% vaccinated. Several months ago, they analyzed their data, which they keep very good data, and they said that the Pfizer vaccine, which is the only one they use there, is not 95% effective, but 39% effective, which is well below the mark that a vaccine has to have in order to be used. Since then, they've come out with another statement just in August. The Israel Public Emergency Council for COVID Crisis evaluated all their data and said that a couple of things that are important. One, the vaccinated get sick just as often as the unvaccinated. That's what the data shows. They also said that the vaccinated spread the infection just as much as the unvaccinated. This is not a pandemic of the unvaccinated. And that goes along with a lot of data. And I don't have time to mention much of it, but in the University of Wisconsin did a study. They evaluated people who had SARS-CoV-1 back 17 years ago and found that they still had robust immunity to SARS-CoV-1 and COVID-19. How long does this immunity last? At least 17 years. How long? They also found that they tested people to see how much viral load they had, and the vaccinated and unvaccinated have the same viral load, the same ability to transmit infection, so there's no difference between the two. Also, recently in the European Journal of Epidemiology, they looked at all the countries around the world that have the are most vaccinated. They found that of the top 5 vaccinated countries, 4 also had the highest rate of infection. Which means the vaccine, and then the converse, of those that had the lowest rate of vaccination, some of them had the lowest rates of infection. So they said there's no correlation between vaccination and infection rates at all. It does not. So the other thing, so we know these two things. It doesn't prevent you from getting it. It doesn't prevent you from spreading it. So what good is it? Well, there is a benefit, and you need to know there is. I'm being fair and unbiased. The benefit right now is if you are vaccinated and get sick with COVID, you have a reduced chance of being hospitalized and dying. That's a real benefit. If you are high risk, this vaccine is probably best for you. If you're at low risk, then it may not benefit you. And we will talk about the risks of the vaccine now. What are those risks? Well, we know, as it was mentioned, over 16,000 people have died, or 16,000 deaths are associated with this vaccine, and 22,000 permanent disabilities. A lot of people will argue, well, we don't know that those were all caused by the vaccine. Well, that's true. We don't know that. What we do know that no vaccine in the history of mankind has ever had a fraction of this amount of adverse events, deaths and disabilities, that was not immediately taken off the market and branded as unsafe. This is the most unsafe vaccine in the history of humanity. For them to constantly say it's safe and effective, we've just seen it's not very effective. It does have some benefit, but it does have some risk. And as these wonderful youngsters are showing us, where there is risk, there has to be choice. Let me just say, so some people it may be indicated for getting the vaccine, other people it's not, and for some it's contraindicated. And the biggest group of those is children. The media would have you believe that children are dying in droves from this Delta variant. The truth is, since the beginning of the pandemic, there have only been 464 deaths in children under age 17. The risk of a child dying is essentially zero. Any death is a tragedy. But, and Dr. McCary at the Johns Hopkins reviewed over 48,000 records and found that not one death in those children did not occur without underlying severe chronic illness. A healthy child does not die from COVID. So those who are wanting to vaccinate your children, there's no benefit. We've just talked about how the vaccinated, so vaccinating your children to try to prevent them from bringing it home to at-risk people doesn't help. The vaccinated and the unvaccinated have the same risk of transmitting it. And children have no benefit from this, so there's zero reason to vaccinate children. I will briefly say a word about natural immunity. It's being much maligned. They originally said, people who we don't know how long natural immunity will last. Well, yes, we do. Last year, a study was done where they evaluated, I already told you about that one. People with natural immunity have at least 17 years while it's still good. I'm getting out of place. All right, so the other thing that we do know that this, well, I will just conclude. How's that? That's what you want to hear. He's getting ready to wind down. All right, so it doesn't prevent you from getting it. It doesn't prevent you from spreading it. There is a benefit, less hospitalizations and death if you get it, although that seems to be short-lived. A Japan study released earlier in the end of August showed that the inhibiting antibodies from the Pfizer vaccine are almost gone, and the enhancing antibodies are still present, which makes it much more effective for people who have been vaccinated. And they said that with each booster, the infectivity will be increased. We seem to see that is happening because in West Virginia, the governor announced that the rate of vaccinated people has the rate of vaccinated people getting sick, hospitalized and dying is up 25%. So anything that can kill us and cause permanent disability should never be mandated. That is period, and we should never mandate or should never vaccinate children. Thank you.